What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? If you have not been here before, my name is Dalton, and today I'm bringing you another race analysis. If you enjoy what you see out of my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me. It greatly helps the channel, helps me grow. And if you enjoyed this video in particular, hit the like button for me and help share it with others as well. That being said, and without further ado, I'm going to dive right into it. Here comes WHPT Saturday Edition, the season finale. This one comes out firing on all cylinders here. So I've got a teammate off the front. Zach is actually riding as my teammate today. This is his footage, and he's on the front right now. You can see in my other teammate Fern's rear footage here, Max and I believe Taylor launch a end of the first lap attack here. They come around Zach, and what works out perfectly is Zach just dives right in, jumps on that wheel, and chases these guys. They create some pretty good separation here, and since Zach was actually the guy that we had slated for the dub today, we didn't actually want to chase as a team because we were concerned, and we talked later on about even bridging and potentially trying to stack the break. Our main concern was that if we did bridge across and we had too many SDBC riders in this group, that they would actually probably just sit up, not do any work, and that actually hurts our chances in getting Zach the win out of that smaller selection. So, spoiler alert, this stays away until the very end. It's not coming back. Nobody really attempts to bridge either. Everybody is pretty much happy with this makeup. Like I said, we have a teammate in the break, and we're not going to chase it. At this point, we are hoping, too, that Zach really isn't having to do any work here, and that he's basically just getting a free ride. The idea would be that since we do have so many riders sitting back in the field waiting for a counterattack, is that basically he wouldn't have to do too much in this break. Fast forward a little bit here to what's left of the field. So we had discussed it as a team and come to the conclusion that Josh actually had probably the best legs for the sprint today. Unfortunately, what you saw there was him throwing up his hand because he had a mechanical and a flat. And that means that if he doesn't get back in this race the next lap around, we're going to have to figure something else out, and our chances of winning the field sprint are sort of dwindling as we're losing numbers. I talked to Spencer here, and he says that he doesn't have the legs for the sprint. I know personally I don't have the legs for the sprint, as I pretty much didn't ride for 2 weeks before this. I was out with a head cold, so it's really up to Fern. Since I know I'm basically not going to be able to sprint with the rest of this crew, what I need to do is hurt everybody else and give one of our guys the best chance to get up the road towards the end. As pretty much everybody in this group is stuck to my wheel anytime I even think about trying anything, the chances that I get away solo or something along those lines are pretty low, and it's pretty likely that I'm going to get a pretty hard chase effort coming behind me. Knowing that, I can actually use that to sort of our team's advantage because I can attack over the top of this group and make people follow me. And that's exactly what I did here. You can see this PRT rider had been off the front for a little bit. He had a little bit of a gap. I slipstream into his draft, and boom, I take off the front. And I'm actually going to maintain this for quite a while. I'm pretty committed to playing the sacrificial lamb here, seeing if I can get a couple guys out to work with me. If that's the case, maybe we do stay away. The reality is I'm fully anticipating the entire group latching back on here, and basically that opens most of the strong riders up to a big counterattack from one of my teammates. Expectation and reality are always different though. It actually turns out that this PRT rider here, this is Ener, he comes across and joins up with me. Now I know that Ener is a pretty strong rider and he'll commit to this breakaway with me. So now that the other break is 3-4 minutes up the road, I'm actually pretty committed to working with Ener. So I'm going to take pulls and I'm going to put in the big digs. I repeatedly threw down some 400-500 watt efforts on the front. Hopefully we can continue to keep the speed high and stay away. As much as I would have loved to ride out a two-man break to the finish, that's definitely sarcasm, it doesn't stick. So what you're going to see is this other rider is actually going to come across with just a grinding counterattack up this 5% grade. And remember, I've got teammates today, so once I'm brought back, that actually sets us up perfectly for a counterattack from my teammate Fern. So he goes ahead and works to bridge up to this rider that just casually rolled off the front, and I'm sort of just sitting here. That's about when the other riders finally recognize that I'm not going to chase my teammate, so they start pushing a little bit harder here. We are coming up to the flat zone, and they're actually going to grind it out here and hope that they catch Fern and the other rider off the front. Fast forward here, that didn't last too long. Everybody was pretty motivated to chase us back. If you look at Fern's rear cam here, you can see that the field is pretty much all stitched back up, and nobody's really out there hanging out by themselves anymore. Probably should have countered this, but I'm tired, man. The next move is pretty big, actually. So Fern was all over it, luckily. Everybody wanted in this. I don't really know how this gap opened up. I don't think it was an actual attack. I think it was basically just that the group in front cornered a lot harder than the trailing group. So if you look back, you see the rider bridging up to this group is about to make contact. I'm hanging out way behind on the front. I'm doing absolutely nothing. And then once this PRT rider, this is Brandon, once he comes through, I go ahead and I stitch on his wheel, make sure I'm there. If he's going to tow me up to this group, I'm going to take the free ride. So, spoiler alert, he does. We end up back up here. We put it all back together. I would have liked to have countered this, but like I said, I'm gassed. Haven't ridden in 2 weeks. Is what it is. The shenanigans that you see going on here are actually going to turn out to be pretty important as the end of this race starts to shape up. So this rider is pretty much just trying to ride us off his wheel. He's sick of us stuck in wheel the whole time, and we're just aggressively heckling him while he does that.
You don't want to go solo? Go ahead. You won't. You won't.
Eaner takes this as an opportunity to actually just crank by everybody really casually and put in a little bit of a gap for himself here off the front, which you're about to see works out really nicely for me. About a half a lap later, as I realize we're bringing this all back together, I see Corey is on the front. He's a pretty fast sprinter, so I don't really want him to come with me. And then I've got 2 teammates, so I'm going to go ahead and throw another attack here. I'm going to dig deep and try and establish at least a little bit of a gap. And my hope here is that it drives a pretty hard chase effort. And as you can see in Fern's rear footage, the field gets really strung out really fast. Actually to the point where Fern, my teammate, establishes a gap of his own with Eaner. Realizing that we had this new makeup of individuals up here off the front, I actually wanted to keep putting in a little bit here on this downhill. That way I made sure that they were going to have to work to catch us. And of course, they do catch us. It's pretty hard to get away on this course, so I'm not super surprised here. On cue though, we are going to get a counterattack. And this rider with PRT is going to come across the front of us here. And this is actually a really dangerous move. And we're going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit here and find out why. Usually one rider off the front, no big deal. Even a second rider, as you see going here, also not a big deal. However, it's sort of on us to chase this as a team. And I'm pretty gassed from having just attacked, so this is a well-timed counter. What's dangerous is those 2 riders actually linked up and started working together.
Those 2 guys off the front are trouble. They put in 8 more seconds.
So I had actually been monitoring their gap, and it looked like they were gaining on us every lap. So really, the big concern here is that they might stay away till the finish with only 2 laps to go. And so I step on the gas here and put in that big attack that you just saw, and that gets everybody going, spiced up, and immediately strings the peloton out. So we keep rotating here. A couple other guys come across to me, and they're also really helping drive the pace, which is extremely important when you're trying to bring these guys back. Nobody wants them to stay away because then we're basically locking up, 7th, 8th place, as the main break of 4 guys is already way up the road. So if you look in Fern's rear cam here, you can see how hard everybody's going to have to stay on this. And that's actually really helpful for me because that means we're wearing a lot of people out. Nothing is really buttoned up tight. It's not actually a group. And so everybody's pretty much chasing independently here, putting in big efforts. The rider in the red kit here is actually doing a ton of work on the front. I'm doing 400, 500 watts up this hill. I'm not getting much draft, but if I'm doing that, then he's also really digging in here. And I want to call your attention back to Fern's rear cam. So it's really important to see that back in the group, these guys are still having to drive a really hard pace, and Fern actually is able to sort of slip away by himself, which is even more helpful because now we could potentially have 2 of our teammates, SDBC riders, up the road with only 2 laps to go, and we've left 2 or 3 of the biggest sprinters of the group back in the main peloton. You can even really see here how much these efforts are hurting me. If you look at my heart rate here, I'm at basically pegged at 178, 177 BPM, and I've got some serious cardiac separation going on after 2 weeks off the bike, just battling a head cold and everything. Coming back to it, and with only 1 day of riding before this, I was just in the absolute pain cave. So I was really experiencing that cardiac separation where you have basically a heart rate that is about 10, 15 BPM higher than what your heart rate should be at the wattages that you're seeing. This group is actually made up really nicely now. Both of my teammates that are left after Josh had flatted out are in this group with me. And we've got this rider in the red who is really willing to work, and I know Ener is on the front here really driving the pace. If you look in Fern's rear cam here, you see I actually almost end up losing the wheel also. So I do manage to maintain and hang on. And now the two riders that were off the front before that we were actually chasing, coming into 1 to go, we actually have them in our sights, and we're basically realizing that we're going to be able to close that gap no problem. So I'm sort of thinking about what we're going to do once we finally do shut that down. Jump ahead here just a little bit. We've just come across the line and we are in the last lap now. So there's 1 to go. You can see Fern is on the front here. I've just sort of taken over as well. And Spencer's opening up a little bit of a gap right as we are buttoning it up with the two riders that had been out in front that whole time. Now, realizing that Spencer has some space between us, I'm not going to step on the gas here to go chase him down. And Fern's really not going to do any big effort either. So what's happening is Spencer is actually able to bridge up to those two riders independently. And then what you'll see happen here is that one of the riders that was off the front already actually goes again with my teammate Spencer. And so this is the last lap here, and that could be a potentially really dangerous move for basically everybody sitting in the field. So let's actually jump ahead here, and you can see Corey has put in his own chase effort and established a gap here. So Fern is shutting that down, and I actually want to shut that down as well. So I'm actually helping with the numbers here, at least in my head. I'm probably just chasing a teammate. So I jump across and try and come independently. I actually look back, realizing that I'm not really bringing anybody with me. I think that this is probably okay. And Corey actually doesn't end up getting away, which is really our key concern. Coming into the final corner, Fern and I shut this chase effort down pretty hard, and Spencer is still way off the front. So now I'm sitting here, and the same PRT rider that had attacked us early on is going again. And now this is actually the final straight, but it's a really long straight, so we're still, I believe, about a mile and a half from the finish line. I'm sitting on the front here, flicking my elbow for somebody to come through, and absolutely nobody's doing it. So that allows this PRT rider and my teammate to basically stick what becomes a really successful move. Keep in mind that Spencer, my other teammate, and one other rider are also still way up the road here as well. So if Fern and this PRT rider can latch onto them, then they're pretty much guaranteed getting to the line. Now Norm comes across here, but Fern attacks right as that happens, and that is just almost perfectly timed. He starts putting in a really big effort up both of these climbs, and since he's pretty light, he can just mountain goat up this hill. Now I get the luxury of basically just sitting back in the pack and marking the chase effort. So as these guys come through and they start to pull really hard to chase, I basically just hang out and sit on their wheel. Coming into the final straight, Fern is still up the road, and you can see it's just him and one other rider now. Spencer has dropped back, and there's nobody else there. I was actually marking that other rider, and then Corey comes around me, and he's basically opened up his sprint. Fern is up the road. He's already coming at the line full speed for basically the sprint finish. I'm just sitting on Corey. In my head, I'm thinking this is an amazing lead out, but I'm only doing 400 watts, and I'm fully anticipating that I'm going to have the 1300 watt pop to get around him at the line. Unfortunately, he just keeps winding it up. My power keeps building, and then boom, Ener actually did still have some pop. He was able to get around both of us. He comes across the line. Corey comes across right in front of me. I think I locked up 9th place. Fern ended up taking the field sprint, locking up 5th. Now, quick outtake here to Zach sprinting on lap 9 out of 10. So he did win lap 9 out of the breakaway. Unfortunately, there was one more to go. And so let's go ahead and check out the actual last lap and see how that plays out from Zach's point of view in the break. That's all she wrote, folks. I feel like we had overall a pretty good result today as a squad. We had Zach, who was up the road in the winning breakaway, ended up taking 3rd out of that 4-man break. Fern won the field sprint and ended up in 5th place overall. And then I cruised across the line a little bit later in 9th. So we were able to put 3 guys in the top 10. Pretty sure if Josh wouldn't have flatted, he also would have been in the top 10, no problem. As always, if you see something that we could have done different as a squad, if you see something that I personally could have done different, I would love to hear about that in the comments below. So go ahead, tell me what you're thinking down there. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button for me so that more people see it on YouTube. And if you enjoy everything that you're seeing out of my channel and you want to support, go ahead and hit subscribe for me. Have a good one, and I hope to talk to you all soon.